Admiral William Carter sat in the cold meeting room on the Galactic Council space station. He tried not to show his anger as he watched the alien delegates talk among themselves. For 3 months, he and other humans had tried to make a fair deal with the Council. 3 months of talking, and they were still being treated like children. Carter looked across the table at the aliens. The Zinthari were tall with blue skin and 6 fingers on each hand. They thought they were better than everyone else. Next, to them sat the Mechtora, who looked almost like robots with their gray skin and eyes that never blinked. They claimed to care only about logic, but Carter knew they looked down on humans too. "We have been very patient," said Susan Mitchell, the main human speaker. Her voice was calm, but Carter could see how tightly she held her pen. "Earth has agreed to many of your terms. We have shown we want to be part of the Galactic Confederation, but we cannot agree to cut our defense forces by 80%. The Zinthari High Chancellor waved his 6-fingered hand as if brushing away a bug. "Primitive species must earn their place," he said. His voice sounded like rocks falling down a hill. "You humans have only been in space for a short time. The Council has existed for thousands of years. You must trust our wisdom." Carter wanted to laugh. Trust. The Council had been trying to trick them from the start. They wanted Earth weak and easy to control. "The terms are fair," said the Mechtora speaker. His voice had no emotion. "Humans are violent by nature. Your history is full of wars. The Council must ensure you do not bring such violence to space." Susan Mitchell stood up straight. "Every species has a violent past. Even yours, though your history books may not mention it. Humans have learned from our mistakes. We come seeking friendship, not war." The meeting went on for hours. The aliens would not change their minds. They wanted Earth to give up most of its ships and weapons. They wanted to put their own people in charge of Earth's remaining ships. They wanted to control which technologies humans could use. Finally, the Zinthari High Chancellor stood up. He was 2 feet taller than any human in the room. "This is our final offer," he said. "Earth will reduce its military by 80%. Earth will accept Confederation officers on all remaining ships. Earth will not develop any new weapons for 50 years. Earth will pay a yearly fee for Confederation protection." The room went quiet. Carter could hear the soft hum of the air filters. He looked at Susan Mitchell. She had tried so hard to make peace. Now she looked tired and sad. Carter stood up. He wasn't supposed to speak at these meetings. He was only there to answer military questions. But he couldn't stay quiet any longer. "For 3 months, we have talked in good faith," he said. His voice was low but strong. Everyone in the room turned to look at him. "We have been willing to compromise on trade, on territory, on sharing technology. But we will not give up our right to protect ourselves." The Zinthari High Chancellor's face turned dark blue with anger. "You are not allowed to speak, military." "Man," Carter ignored him. "Humanity didn't survive its own hard history by giving in to threats. We came here as equals, not as beggars." Susan Mitchell nodded. She picked up her papers. "The Admiral is right. These talks are over. Earth will not accept these terms." The human group stood up together. Carter felt a weight lift from his shoulders. 3 months of fake smiles and polite words were done. As they walked toward the door, the Mechtora speaker called after them. "You will change your minds when you realize how alone you are. The Confederation includes over 200 species. You need us more than we need you." Carter turned back one last time. "Maybe. But we'd rather be alone and free than together, and slaves." The trip back to their ship was quiet. No one spoke until they were safely on board the Earth vessel Promise. Once the doors closed behind them, Susan Mitchell turned to Carter. "Well, that's that," she said. 3 months wasted." Carter shook his head. "Not wasted. Now we know for sure what they really want, and we know we can't trust them." In the ship's meeting room, the Earth team gathered. There were 12 of them, diplomats, scientists, military officers. They had all hoped for peace. Now they had to prepare for something else. "What happens next?" asked Dr. Lisa Kent, the team's expert on alien cultures. Susan Mitchell looked at Carter. "Admiral, You've been planning for this, haven't you? Carter nodded slowly. Yes. The Defense Council back on Earth gave me permission to start Protocol Thermopylae if the talks failed. Thermopylae? Asked one of the younger diplomats. Like the ancient battle, where the few stood against the many. Exactly, said Carter. We always hoped for peace, but we planned for war too. The Council thinks we're weak because we're new to space. They think we have no choice but to accept their terms. He walked to the window and looked out at the stars. They're wrong. Humans have been preparing since we first met aliens and realized not all of them were friendly. Susan Mitchell looked worried. The Confederation has 200 member species, Admiral. Some of them have been in space for thousands of years. Their technology is far ahead of ours. Carter smiled for the first time that day. Is it? That's what they think. That's what we've let them think. He pressed a button on the table. A 3D map of the solar system appeared above them. Red dots showed the position of hidden human bases and ships. For years we've been building in secret, Carter said. Ships, weapons, defenses, things the Council doesn't know about. Things they think are impossible for primitive humans. The others stared at the map in shock. There were hundreds of red dots. But that's not all, Carter continued. We've made friends with other primitive species, ones the Council looks down on just like us. We've been sharing information, technology, resources. He switched off the map. The Council thinks we're going home to give up. Instead, we're going to show them that humans don't make good slaves, but we do make dangerous enemies. Susan Mitchell took a deep breath. And if they attack us? Then they'll learn another lesson, said Carter. Never corner something that knows how to fight back. As the Promise turned away from the Galactic Council station and headed for the jump point that would take them home, Carter felt a strange mix of sadness and excitement. He had hoped for peace, truly. But deep down, a part of him had always known it would come to this. The real test of humanity was just beginning. The message from Admiral Carter reached Earth 12 hours before the Promise did. By the time the ship docked at the orbital station above Earth, Protocol Thermopylae was already in motion. Nancy Wells stood in the main control room of the hidden base inside Olympus Mons on Mars. As operation director, she had spent 5 years preparing for this day. She hoped it would never come, but she wasn't surprised that it had. Status report, she said to the room full of workers. Screens covered the walls, showing ships, bases, and troops throughout the solar system. All hidden fleets are powering up, said a young man at the first desk. No signs that the Council's spy satellites have noticed. They won't notice, said Nancy. Our stealth tech works. We've tested it 100 times. She walked to another screen that showed the production lines deep under the surface of Mars. Hundreds of workers built ships and weapons that the Council thought were beyond human ability. How long until the new ships are ready? She asked. 3 days for the first wave, said Alan Foster, the chief engineer. He was an older man with gray hair and hands rough from years of work. 1 week for all of them. Alan pointed to a different screen showing a strange engine glowing with blue light. The quantum fold drives are working perfectly. We can thank the Zinthari for that. Nancy nodded. 3 years ago, a Zinthari scout ship had crashed on Titan, one of Saturn's moons. The Zinthari told the Council that the ship was destroyed with all its technology. They lied. Humans had recovered the ship and learned its secrets. And the shields? Nancy asked. Better than anything the Council has, said Alan with pride. We didn't just copy their tech, we improved it. Nancy checked each part of the operation. Colonel Gregory Martinez reported that his special forces
teams were ready. These soldiers had trained for years in secret.
They had neural implants that connected their minds, allowing them to work together like parts of one body. My people can take any ship in the Confederation fleet, Martinez said. His face was serious. Just give the word. On the next screen, Fleet Commander Patricia Ortiz showed Nancy the stealth ships hidden behind Jupiter's moons. These ships were small and fast, built to attack and then disappear. We have 96 stealth vessels ready, Patricia said. The aliens won't see us until it's too late. The final report came from the most secret base of all, deep under the ice of Europa. Dr. Kyle Bennett appeared on the screen, with the glow of blue light behind him. "Nexus is online and ready," he said quietly. Nancy felt a chill. Nexus was the most powerful weapon humans had, an artificial intelligence unlike anything in the galaxy. Most alien species feared AI and banned it. Humans had embraced it instead. Has it made any predictions? Nancy asked. Kyle nodded. Nexus says the Council will send the Zinthari fleet first, 16 large warships plus smaller support vessels. They'll arrive in our system in approximately 5 days. Just 16? Nancy was surprised. That's not enough to conquer Earth. They don't think they need more, Kyle explained. The Council believes we only have 40 or 50 ships, all with old technology. They think this will be easy. Nancy smiled. They're wrong. She turned to the main screen, which showed Earth. Beautiful blue Earth, home to 12 billion humans. The cradle of their species. For a moment, Nancy felt doubt. What if they failed? What if the Council was stronger than they thought? Then she remembered the terms the Council had offered. Surrender your defense forces. Accept our control. Become our servants, not our equals. The anger returned, washing away the doubt. Send the signal to Admiral Carter, she ordered. Tell him everything is ready. Operation Thermopylae is fully active. As the message went out, Nancy's assistant approached her with a small device. Director Wells, Admiral Carter asked me to give you this when the protocol started. Nancy took the device and pressed her thumb to it. A hologram appeared, a 3D image of Admiral Carter. Director Wells, the hologram said. If you're watching this, then the peace talks have failed, as I feared they would. Now the real work begins. The image of Carter looked tired but determined. The Council thinks they know us. They've studied our history and seen our wars. They think we're violent and primitive. But they missed something important. Carter's image smiled. Yes, humans fight wars, but we also end them. We make peace. We rebuild. We learn. The Council looked at our history and saw only the destruction. They missed the creation that always follows. The hologram flickered. They think our technology is weak. Let them think that. They believe our fleet is small. Let them believe that. When they come to force their terms on us, they'll discover the truth. Carter's image became serious again. But remember this, Director. We don't want to destroy them. We want to change them. Make them see us as equals, not subjects. Use only the force needed to make that point. No more. The hologram ended. Nancy put the device down and looked around the control room. Everyone was watching her. You heard the Admiral? She said. We show the Council our strength, but we don't destroy them. We want peace. Real peace between equals, not the false peace of masters and servants. In the days that followed, the solar system changed. Hidden shipyards revealed themselves. Secret bases activated. Stealth ships moved into position. The Nexus system spread through Earth's networks, watching, calculating, planning. On the 5th day, exactly as Nexus had predicted, sensors detected the Zinthari fleet entering the outer solar system. 16 large warships plus support vessels, moving with confidence toward Earth. In orbit around Earth, Admiral Sandra Morrison prepared the visible human fleet, 40 older ships arranged in a defensive pattern. This was the fleet the Council knew about. The bait in the trap. The Council thought humans were alone, weak, and frightened. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Nancy Wells watched from the control room on Mars as the pieces moved into position. The real battle for humanity's place in the galaxy was about to begin, and this time they wouldn't be using words. The Zinthari fleet moved slowly through the outer solar system. Their ships were huge, each one almost a mile long, with weapons that could destroy a small moon. Supreme Marshal Klevex stood on the bridge of his command ship, the Eternal Glory. He was not worried about the coming battle. In fact, he was bored. How long until we reach the human homeworld, he asked his second-in-command. 12 hours, Supreme Marshal, said the officer. Our sensors show the humans have gathered their ships around their planet. Only 40 vessels. as our intelligence reported. Kulvex made a sound that was the Zinthari version of a laugh. 40 ships against our 16? They must know they cannot win. They are a proud species, said the officer. Perhaps they feel they must make some show of resistance before surrendering. Kulvex nodded. The Council was right to send us. Humans need to learn their place in the galaxy. Meanwhile, hidden from the Zinthari sensors, Colonel Martinez and his special forces waited in their small stealth ships. They had positioned themselves along the path the Zinthari fleet would take. In his neural link, Martinez could feel the minds of his soldiers, calm, focused, ready. Remember your training, he said to them through the link. We strike fast and take control of their key systems. No unnecessary killing. The soldiers acknowledged his orders. They wore black armor with built-in stealth technology. Each carried weapons designed to stun rather than kill. Their mission was not to destroy the Zinthari ships, but to capture them. Colonel,
Came the voice of Fleet Commander Ortiz in his ear.
my stealth fleet is in position. We will disable their engines and weapon systems on your mark. Understood, said Martinez. We wait for Admiral Morrison's signal. Around Earth, Admiral Sandra Morrison watched the Zinthari fleet approach. Her 40 ships were old but still powerful. They were arranged in a defensive pattern that any military expert would recognize. The pattern of someone expecting to lose but hoping to delay defeat. Open a channel to the Zinthari flagship, Morrison ordered. The face of Supreme Marshal Kulvex appeared on her screen. His blue skin was decorated with gold markings showing his high rank. Human Admiral, he said with obvious contempt. I am Supreme Marshal Kulvex of the Zinthari Enforcement Fleet. By order of the Galactic Council, you will power down your weapons and prepare to accept our terms. Morrison kept her face calm. This is Admiral Sandra Morrison of Earth. We have no quarrel with the Zinthari people. Leave our system and there will be no conflict. Kulvex laughed. You are in no position to make demands, human. You have 24 of your hours to surrender. After that, we will disable your fleet and, if necessary, bombard your military bases. If you attack us, we will defend ourselves, said Morrison. With what? Asked Kulvex. Your primitive ships, your outdated weapons? The Zinthari were exploring the stars when your ancestors were still living in caves. Morrison did not answer his insult. 24 hours. We will have our response ready by then. The screen went dark. Morrison turned to her crew. Send the signal to Director Wells. Operation Thermopylae is entering Phase 2. On Mars, Nancy Wells received the signal. They took the bait, she said to her team. They believe we only have 40 ships. Begin the countdown. All units will act in exactly 23 hours and 50 minutes. Why not attack now? Asked one of her staff. We could catch them completely by surprise. Because, said Nancy, we're giving them one last chance to leave peacefully, and because Admiral Morrison wants them to think they've won right up until the moment they lose. For almost 24 hours, nothing happened. The Zinthari fleet held its position, waiting for Earth's surrender. Supreme Marshal Kulvex even took a sleep cycle, so sure was he of victory. When he returned to the bridge, there were just 10 minutes left in the deadline. Any communication from the humans? He asked. None, Supreme Marshal, said his officer. They appear to be powering up their weapon systems. Kulvex nodded. They choose to fight. It will not save them, but I respect their courage. As the deadline passed, Kulvex opened a channel to Earth. Your time is up, Admiral Morrison. Do you surrender? Morrison's face appeared on his screen. She looked tired, but determined. The people of Earth will never surrender their freedom. We will defend ourselves. Kulvex sighed. As you wish. All ships, target their vessels. Disable, don't destroy. The Council wants their technology intact. The Zinthari ships moved forward, weapons, charging. Their sensors still showed only the 40 Earth ships arranged in their hopeless defensive pattern. At that moment, deep under the ice of Europa, Dr. Kyle Bennett gave the order. Nexus, execute Operation Thermopylae. The AI system that humans had built in secret sent the signal throughout the solar system. All at once, everything changed. Behind Jupiter's moons, Commander Ortiz's fleet of 96 stealth ships dropped their cloaking fields and appeared on the Zinthari sensors. Before the Zinthari could react, the stealth ships fired quantum torpedoes, precisely targeted at engines and weapon systems. At the same time, Colonel Martinez gave the order to his special forces. Their small ships, completely invisible until now, attached to the hulls of the Zinthari vessels. The soldiers cut through the hulls and entered the enemy ships. The Zinthari were completely surprised. Their sensors, which had been showing clear space, now showed hundreds of human ships appearing from nowhere. Their weapons, which had been targeting Earth's defensive fleet, suddenly went offline as Martinez's soldiers took control of their systems. On the bridge of the Eternal Glory, Supreme Marshal Kulvex watched in shock as his screens showed human soldiers appearing throughout his ship. They moved with impossible speed and coordination, stunning his crew before they could even draw their weapons. "What is happening?" he demanded. "How did they get aboard? Where did these ships come from?" Before anyone could answer, the door to the bridge opened. Colonel Martinez walked in, his black armor making him look like a shadow. Behind him were 20 soldiers, their weapons pointed at the Zinthari crew. "Supreme Marshal Kulvex," said Martinez, "your ship is now under our control. Please order your fleet to stand down." Kulvex stared at the human in disbelief. "Impossible," he said. "The council said you were primitives. Your technology is decades behind ours." Martinez smiled. "Your council was wrong. Within 30 minutes, the pride of the Zinthari enforcement fleet was disabled. Not a single ship had been destroyed, and casualties on both sides were minimal. The human stealth ships had hit their targets with perfect accuracy, and Martinez's soldiers had captured all key systems before the Zinthari could react. Supreme Marshal Kulvex found himself facing Admiral Morrison on the screen again. But this time as a prisoner. "How?" he asked simply. "How did humans develop such technology in secret?" "We didn't want this conflict," Morrison told him, "but we were prepared for it. Now we would like to discuss new terms." News of the Zinthari defeat spread through the galaxy faster than any ship could travel. The Galactic Council received the report from a small scout vessel that had escaped the battle. At first, they did not believe it. How could humans, a species that had only been in space for less than 200 years, defeat the mighty Zinthari fleet? The council chambers were in chaos. Over 200 alien representatives shouted and argued. Some demanded immediate military action against Earth. Others called for new peace talks. Many simply wanted to understand how this had happened. High Counselor Drav, an ancient being from one of the oldest species in the galaxy, called for order. "Silence!" his voice boomed through the chamber. "We must approach this matter with calm and wisdom." When the noise died down, Drav continued, "Let us hear from Earth's observer to the Council." All eyes turned to Eric Powell, the human who had sat quietly at the back of the chamber for years. He was not a full representative since Earth was not a member of the Confederation. He was only an observer with no voting rights. Until today, most council members had barely noticed him. Powell walked to the center of the chamber. He was a tall man with dark skin and gray hair. He looked calm, but inside he felt both proud and worried. Earth had won a great victory, but what would happen next? "The Confederation has always claimed to be a community of equals," he began. "Yet you offered humanity terms that would make us servants, not partners. You assumed our youth as a spacefaring species made us weak. That was a mistake." A Mectora representative stood up. "Your people violated Confederation law by hiding your true military capabilities. You deceived us." Powell smiled slightly. "Did we? I have evidence that many Confederation species, including the Mectora, have done the same for centuries." He pressed a button on his wrist device. The large screen in the center of the chamber lit up with images of hidden bases and secret shipyards belonging to various Confederation members. "We simply learned from your example," Powell explained. "We watched and learned. When we realized the Council would never accept us as equals, we prepared to defend ourselves." The chamber erupted in angry shouts again. Many representatives demanded to know how humans had obtained these secret images. Powell waited for the noise to die down. Earth has transmitted new proposed terms for our entry into the Confederation as genuine equals. Alternatively, we are prepared to remain independent. You cannot dictate terms to the Council, shouted the representative of the Galtura, a species known for their fierce pride. We have existed for 10,000 years. And yet, said Powell calmly, your fleet could not defeat ours. Age does not always bring wisdom or strength. He looked around the chamber. There is something else you should know. Earth is not alone. In its dissatisfaction with the current structure of the Confederation, this statement caused a new wave of confusion. Powell pressed another button on his wrist device. The screen changed to show a list of names, species that had been classified as minor or emerging by the Council. We have formed alliances with these species, Powell said. They too are tired of being treated as less than equal. Together, we propose a reformation of the Confederation, a new structure where all members truly have equal rights and responsibilities. The Council was shocked. Many of these minor species had representatives in the chamber right now. They had never spoken up before, always accepting their lower status. Now, one by one, they stood up in support of Powell's words. The representative of the Novar, a species known for their intelligence, spoke first. For 300 years, we have been denied access to certain technologies because we were deemed not ready. Yet humans managed to develop similar technologies in less than 50 years. Perhaps the problem is not our readiness, but your unwillingness to share. Others spoke up as well. The Falari complained about trade restrictions. The Juxar mentioned how their military was limited by council decree. The Cathal reminded everyone how their request for full membership had been denied 6 times. High Councillor Drav looked troubled. The council was facing its greatest crisis in thousands of years. If these minor species united with Earth, they would represent a significant power in the galaxy. What exactly do you propose? Drav asked Powell. A new Confederation charter, Powell replied. One that truly treats all species as equals. No more division between elder and emerging races. Fair representation for all. Open sharing of technology and resources. And if we refuse? Asked a Zinthari representative, his voice full of anger. Then Earth and its allies will form our own alliance, said Powell simply. We do not seek conflict, but neither will we accept being treated as lesser beings. The council chamber fell silent as the representatives considered Powell's words. They had always believed that the hierarchy of species was natural and right. The oldest and most advanced species should guide the younger ones. It had been this way for thousands of years. But now a young species had shown that age did not always equal power or wisdom. Humans had developed in secret what had taken other species centuries to create. And they had done something perhaps even more dangerous. They had given hope to other minor species. The council must discuss this matter in private, said High Councillor Drav finally. Observer Powell, please inform Earth that we will consider their proposal. Powell bowed slightly. Of course, but be aware that time is of a factor. Our alliance grows stronger each day. As Powell left the chamber, emergency sessions were called. The Confederation's military experts tried to understand how humans had developed technology that should have been beyond their capabilities. Intelligence analysts admitted their failure to detect Earth's hidden fleet and preparations. But what worried the elder races most was the realization that other minor species had been watching humanity's example and learning from it. The balance of power in the galaxy was shifting, and for the first time in thousands of years, the ancient species felt uncertain about their future. In his private quarters, Powell contacted Earth. Admiral Carter's face appeared on the screen. How did it go? Carter asked. Just as we expected, replied Powell. They're shocked and confused. Some want war, others want peace. But most importantly, our allies stood with us. Carter nodded. Good. The first step toward real change is taken. Now we see if the council is wise enough to adapt. And if they're not? Asked Powell. Carter's face grew serious. Then the galaxy will change anyway. With them or without them. 6 months passed. The galaxy held its breath, waiting to see what would happen between Earth and the Galactic Council. During this time, More minor species joined Earth's alliance. Some did it openly, others in secret, but all were tired of being treated as less important than the older species. Admiral William Carter looked out the window of his ship as it approached the Galactic Council station. The last time he had been here, he had walked away from peace talks. Now he was returning as Earth's official representative. "Nervous?" asked Olivia Wilson, who stood beside him. She had worked for months to build the alliance of minor species that now stood with Earth. "A little," admitted Carter. "It's not every day you change the course of galactic history. You already did that when you walked out 6 months ago," said Wilson with a smile. Their ship docked at the station. When Carter and Wilson stepped off, they were met by a group of council security officers. The aliens stood stiffly, clearly unhappy about escorting the humans who had humbled the mighty Zinthari. "The council is waiting," said the lead officer. Carter nodded. "Then let's not keep them waiting any longer." The council chamber looked different from the last time Carter had seen it. The seats had been rearranged. Before, they had been in a pattern that put the oldest and most powerful species at the front and center. Now they formed a circle, with no position more important than any other. The chamber was full. All 217 species of the Confederation were present. And there were new faces, too. Representatives of the minor species that had allied with Earth. High Counselor Drav stood as Carter entered. "Admiral William Carter representing Earth. The Council recognizes you and welcomes you." Carter took his place in the circle. He noticed that the Zinthari delegation sat stiffly, their blue faces dark with anger. Their defeat had cost them much of their influence in the Council. "For 6 months we have discussed the proposals put forward by Earth and its allies," said Drav. "Today, we vote on the new Confederation Charter." Carter held his breath. This was the moment that would decide if there would be peace or war in the galaxy. Drav continued. "The changes are significant. All distinctions between elder and emerging races will be removed. All member species will have equal voting rights. Military forces will be limited equally for all members, not just the newer species. Technology sharing will be open to all." There were murmurs throughout the chamber. Some were happy with these changes. Others were clearly unhappy. "We will now vote," said Drava. One by one, the representatives indicated their vote. Carter watched, carefully counting in his head. They needed a 2/3 majority to pass the new charter. The Zinthari voted against, of course. So did several other ancient species who had enjoyed special privileges under the old system. But many of the older species surprised Carter by voting in favor. Perhaps they had realized that change was inevitable, and it was better to shape it than to resist it. When the voting finished, Drav announced the result. The new charter is approved by 162 votes to 55. A cheer went up from the representatives of the minor species. They had been fighting for equal treatment for centuries, and now they had finally won. Carter felt a weight lift from his shoulders. Earth had gambled everything on this moment. They had prepared for war while hoping for peace. Now it seemed that peace would win. After the meeting, Carter met with Olivia Wilson in a quiet room on the station. "We did it," said Wilson. "The new Confederation will be different. Better." "It's just the beginning," said Carter. "Now we have to make it work." Wilson looked thoughtful. "Do you think we took too big a risk? We came so close to galactic war." Carter watched through a window as representatives of a dozen species, former rivals and now cautious allies, talked together in a nearby room. They were discussing a joint scientific mission, with technologies contributed by both ancient and young civilizations. "Respect had to be earned," he replied. "Not just for us, but for all the species that had been pushed aside. Sometimes walking away from a bad deal is the only way to get a good one." "The Council could have chosen war," said Wilson. "They could have," agreed Carter. "But deep down, I think they knew we were right. The old system couldn't last forever. The gap between the elder and emerging races was getting smaller every year. Technology was spreading despite their efforts to control it. Change was coming whether they wanted it or not." Wilson smiled. and we just hurried it along a bit. Carter nodded, with a little help from the Zinthari. If they hadn't been so arrogant, if they had offered us fair terms, we might not be here now. Speaking of the Zinthari, said Wilson, what do you think they'll do now? Carter shrugged. Adapt, I hope. They're still a powerful and ancient species with much to offer the galaxy, just not as rulers anymore. Later that day, Carter took his place at the first meeting of the new council. His seat was the same height and position as all the others. When he looked around, he saw not enemies or superiors, but potential partners. A new saying was spreading through Confederation space. Humans make better partners than servants. Carter liked it. It summed up everything they had fought for. As the meeting began, Carter thought about the long journey that had brought him here. From the failed peace talks to the secret preparations, from the battle with the Zinthari to this new beginning. It had been a dangerous game, risking the future of Earth and perhaps the entire galaxy, but it had worked. By refusing peace on unfair terms, they had created a chance for a more genuine peace. By preparing for war, they had made war unnecessary, and, throughout the galaxy, the Confederation's older species were quietly reassessing everything they thought they knew about primitive species. Perhaps age and experience weren't everything. Perhaps there was something to be said for the fresh perspectives and bold thinking of the younger races. The galaxy would never be the same again, and that, Carter thought, was definitely a good thing.